Well, I would now like to welcome Cheri Zao, the second candidate for State Senate, District 5. She's here with us this evening. And thank you, Cheri, for being here. And why don't you take a minute and introduce yourself to the voters of Kootenai County and explain why you're running for District 5 Senate seat.
Well, thank you for having me. I've been a resident of Kootenai County for 35 years, and I've seen a lot of changes. And I've also seen things happen that make me feel like now that I'm retired, I should be stepping up and doing a little bit more to help our community and our kids. And right now, I think that we need to actually have some competition in our primaries. And so I'm running as an option for voters in the primary for seat 5, Legislative District 5. And I think that I can do a good job, and I think that I want to give the voters of Kootenai County the opportunity to decide if I can do a good job and send me to office.
Very good. Well, we're going to start with our first question, Cheri, and you'll have 2 minutes to respond. From your view, what was one positive thing that came out of the last legislative session? And what was one negative thing that came out of the last session? And explain to us why.
Well, the positive view is that we did make some more strides towards funding our public education. And Governor Little has been a strong advocate for helping us improve our infrastructure for the state as well as in public education. So I was really glad to see that come out of the legislature. And the other thing that bothered me was sometimes our legislature enacted some laws that really infringe upon individual responsibility and took away local control. And I won't mention any specific legislation, but you can find out what that legislation was. That kind of bothered me a bit if you go to my website. So I don't like it when people take away our individual responsibilities and tell us how we should be doing things. And so that was my one thing that I'll talk about that was negative.
Okay, thank you. The second question we have for you is, how would you assess the relationship down in Boise between the governor's office and the legislature? And if you were elected, what would you do to make that the most effective it could be for the citizens of Idaho?
Well, the primary responsibility of our legislatures is actually to take care of the budget. And it's not up to the governor to take care of the budget. He will indicate some of his priorities to us, but it is up to the legislatures to actually take a look at the budget, take a look at the needs, and critically assess that. And JFAC is the committee that is responsible for what I call the big grunt work. And so our legislatures are supposed to handle that because that handles what government does for us. And if they do their job and they present it to the governor, then the budget gets passed and things are allowed to function smoothly. But if they quibble over a lot of different things in the budget, the governor doesn't have any control over that. So the governor doesn't control the legislature. The legislature controls the budget, and they have to work together to get that taken care of so that the governor can then execute his responsibilities, because he's responsible for helping us to execute the laws and that they legislate. They can make laws. That's what legislatures do, legislate. They make laws, but the laws that they make should be designed to help Idaho, not just special interest groups, but all of Idahoans. And so they work together, but they both work in their own lanes. So.
Okay, thank you. So the final question we have is a bit more specific, and you actually touched on it. It involves public education, and you're going to put your teacher hat on for just a second in some ways, and we want you to grade how the legislature is done with funding public education in Idaho. So give us a grade and explain the score you give the legislature.
Well, in the past, I wouldn't give them a passing grade. So I'm not going to say it's an F or a D, maybe a C minus. And, and that's what their past performance has been. And public education is a foundation of a great nation. Our education is the foundation of a great nation, and public education is our responsibility as members of our state to make sure that our kids are adequately educated. And our legislature has not done a good job in making it clear who's responsible for what. And bonds and levies are what I'm going to digress into, because the legislature decided to fund only a certain amount of our public education and then let a little federal dollars come in and then let the community decide how to fund the rest. But they made it to where if the community doesn't fund it, then we lose like 25% or more of the dollars necessary to run an organization. And that's not a way to actually do business. And so our current system creates too much quibbling over our responsibilities because people don't understand our responsibilities. And so when you have a bond or a levy, bonds are for buildings, levies are for maintenance and operation. And you give people this responsibility, and the people don't really understand how it's their actual obligation. They think that it's an ask and that it's not an obligation. And so they go at it and they argue about it, and they cut funding, which is a morale. It really cuts the morale for the people. And so I'm not happy with how they handle that aspect.
Okay. Well, thank you. And that was the last of our 3 long questions, or longer segment questions. And now, Cheri, you'll have an opportunity to share any final thoughts you have about your candidacy, or what you would like the voters to know here and why they should vote for you. And you'll have a minute to do that.
1 minute. That's not fair. All right. Folks, I've been here for a while. I've seen the changes, and I would like to have an opportunity to work for you, because I really think that legislatures should listen to their people and try to do the best that they can do with the information that their people are giving them from their community, and bring their wishes to Boise and to work on laws that will help the people of their communities. That's what I believe a legislature should do. I also don't like it that when you contact your legislature, as I've done many times, and they never get back to you. And I thought that, we're small enough that we should be able to actually hear back from our legislature if we actually send them any sort of requests or let them know how we feel about certain laws. And so I want to be that person for you, where you can contact me and I can work for you to make Idaho a great place, because it already is. We just can make it better.
And you said you had a website.
I do.
Would you like to share your website with
Yes.
the voters?
It's cherizao.com. So CHERIZAO.com. And so you can find out my legislative priorities, where I wrote a letter to Governor Little about something I didn't like that he did. Things along that line about who I am and stuff. And I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to share my website. But I'm kind of excited.
Well, good. And
Yeah.
we're excited that you joined us this evening and shared about the things you're passionate about, shared reasons why you're running and where you're at on your issues. So thank you, Cheri. We appreciate you coming, and best of luck to you.
Thanks.
Yeah.